All right. 138, 135 final score in overtime at Madison Square Garden. Game one loss for the New York Knickerbockers. And there's no way to spin this other than to call it an all-time collapse by the New York Knicks. You can't say anything before you say that. We'll get into why. We'll get into what happened. We will get into how they can prevent it from happening again. But you can't fix a problem until you admit you've got one. And for the New York Knicks, well, they had a huge problem tonight. I believe they allowed about 30 points in the last 7 minutes of the game between the end of the fourth quarter and overtime. Um, Aaron Nesmith turned into Peja Stojakovic and made a lot of three-pointers, to the extent where a 16-point lead late in the fourth quarter for the New York Knicks evaporated with concerning quickness and became a situation where it felt like the Knicks just weren't ready for that. I think they were completely caught off guard by the Pacers comeback at the end of that game. I mean, a 5-point swing off the goaltend, the missed goaltend, and the Nemhard three. We can talk about that all day. But to me, you've got to look at Brunson passing up, dribbling out the clock to make, like, at best a sketchy pass to OG. The Karl Anthony Towns missed free throw. The OG Anunoby missed free throw. They fouled up three with 12 seconds left. I mean, that's been a brutal state of affairs for the Knicks, not fouling up three. Tyrese Maxey, and they've had their fair share of moments in the playoffs where not fouling up three has gone really poorly for them. Well, today they did, and it went really poorly. The Knicks looked gassed. The Knicks looked gassed by the end of the game, and I don't know that it was a physical gassing as much as it was emotional. Like, it may be 50-50. They looked emotionally exhausted out there. Like, the Pacers, I described them yesterday as the little engine that could. And here we are, folks. I mean, they're just a very impressive, balanced basketball team that, has a leader in Tyrese Halliburton, but Pascal Siakam is their best player to me. Aaron Nesmith was the hero tonight. Obi Toppin with two really key dunks late that helped the Pacers seal the game. You can't overlook that. You can't overlook the extent to which every player on the Pacers impacted this comeback. And as much as I'd like to say, you know, the series is over and this and that, I can't sell you on that shock jock take because it's one game, right? The New York Knicks came out, got out to a good lead. Indiana was making no shots. The timeline was joking about how they used up their regression to the mean in the second half to not even really come back, and then they'll start game two shooting poorly again. Well, there they were, shooting very well to end game one. So last year, the Knicks started up 2-0 against the Pacers in the second round. This year, the Pacers start the series in game one per the Pat Riley rules, take one on the road. Let's focus on what there is to talk about, which is the collapse at the end of the game. I want to start with the team in general. And to get back to what I was saying earlier, everyone on the Pacers was doing well. Everyone on the Pacers helped them come back. Aaron Nesmith, Tyrese Halliburton, Obi Toppin, Andrew Nemhard. These guys all played. Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, even though he wasn't on the court for a weirdly long amount of time. But these guys all looked good. To me, that is less of, and the Pacers deserve so much credit, right? But it's less of a credit to the Pacers when everyone looks good than it is to me just a criticism of the Knicks defense allowing everyone to look good, because that's not optimal. You don't want everyone looking good on the other team. And when that's the case, I think you can just take a look at the defensive effort from the opposite team. The Knicks defense to end the game was not good. And the two main culprits, per my eyes on the first watch, were OG Anunoby and Josh Hart. I've been critical of Josh Hart this season for the extent to which he's comfortable gambling off the ball on the defensive end of the floor and then telling reporters after the game that the defensive communication needs to be better. I don't consider myself one of the signed contract in blood straight from my veins Thibodeau defenders, but I do think he did not get a super fair shake a lot of this season, particularly with the Knicks defensive communication, because when players point to defensive communication, it makes it sound like the coach isn't reaching them. And I think like Josh Hart wasn't reaching his teammates when he was gambling for steals or to double guys that just it didn't make sense. He was trying to make a play and it didn't work. Um, I do understand the logic that having Bridges and Anunoby out there allows you to gamble more, allows you to get away with more. But when it happens to an extent where the fundamentals of the defense are objectively compromised, it has to be toned down. It has to be toned down. And Josh Hart at the end of this game, at the end of the fourth quarter, and in a lot of overtime, lost his man off the ball. You saw it with the easy Andrew Nemhard layup late in the game. You'll see it if you go back and watch the game over again. It's very difficult to say that the Knicks collapse was not primarily because of OG Anunoby and Josh Hart. I think it was Schwinn who said they were taking turns, like doing bad stuff on defense. I think he phrased it a little more harshly than that, but this is a kid friendly program here, folks. I I will say like, hey, you can't just blame two guys for the whole collapse, but what I'm trying to share with you guys is more so Anunoby and Hart are the two guys that I'm going to be watching most closely when rewatching this game. Because when I rewatch this game tomorrow, I will watch this collapse several times over and I will watch each Nick a different time. And I'm going to start with 3 and 8 because it didn't feel like the things that needed to get done for the Knicks to get defensive stops were getting done by all 5 players. If you're just joining the stream, what's going on? I'm Kris Pursiainen, national NBA reporter for Clutch Points, and the host here at All Things NBA from A to Z, host, producer, editor. If you're watching on Twitter, you can pop on over to YouTube where you can leave comments. I'm about to get into the comment section, start really interacting with y'all, answering any questions you guys have. But yeah, so if you're on YouTube, leave a thumbs up. If you're on Twitter, hit the retweet button. Appreciate you guys a lot. Been trying to go live more often, just talking basketball. And I feel like this is as good a night as any to do my first solo stream. I mean, it's bad. This is a bad ending to the game for the New York Knicks. There's no spin of it. If you want to spin it somehow, if you want to try somehow to spin this, I tweeted this. Reggie Miller, when he did the choking sign at Spike Lee, the Pacers lost that series. That's the only possible spin here for the New York Knicks. Sorry, sharing the stream on some different social media networks here. Let's get into your comments. Let's get into the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to respond to your guys' takes, your questions. Sanjay Tarani over on Twitter says, Kris, you're a brave man going live after this. Hey, man. That's the biz. That's what I do. It's something to talk about games, good and bad. It's quite different. It's a different experience. But if I want to get good at this and be able to do this on sports radio or on live streams for a career, I've got to just start now because here I am. So, I gotta challenge myself, man. Matthew, what the F was OG doing playing and drop on 6 straight Aaron Nesmith? So yeah, the Aaron Nesmith threes. And if you're not reading the screen, Matthew asked, what was OG doing playing and drop on 6 straight Aaron Nesmith threes? Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that he was in drop so much as I think there were times he was just a rotation late. I think there were times that other Knicks were a rotation late and made him feel like he needed to help. It's just brutal because it feels like the Knicks had to win that game up 16 that late. And for Aaron Nesmith to hit all those, I mean, it just kept happening and kept happening. Here's a stat for you guys. Kirtika Uttayakumar is really, really good. She does a lot of Raptors stuff, but she posted this today. NBA teams were 0 and 970 in the playoffs over the last 27 years when trailing by 14 plus points with under 250 left in regulation. Tonight made it 1 and 970. So this is literally a historic Knicks collapse, leaving the Pacers up 1-0. And I will put that on the screen because, geez. And I missed a word. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. All right. Yeah, let's talk Neesmith at the end of the game. Aaron Neesmith just kept making threes, and you have to tip your cap. But not if you're on the court. If you're on the court wearing orange and blue, you absolutely do not have to tip your cap to Aaron Neesmith. Like, don't let him take another one. The defense from the New York Knicks, not only on Neesmith and the Pacers shooters in general, but on the screens that they were setting late in the fourth quarter, was genuinely unacceptable. And I think they know that because it directly resulted in them going to overtime and directly resulted in them losing the game. Frankly put, the New York Knicks did not defend at the end of regulation like they had interest in winning the basketball game. It was almost like they were playing a game of 2K against their little cousin who they know they're much better than, and they like troll their way out of their 20-point lead and actually into losing. And by the time they kick it into gear, they're so demoralized, it just doesn't matter. Again, brutal collapse for the Knicks in game one to the Pacers, 138-135, the final in overtime. Tyrese Halliburton is living up to every bit of the Reggie Miller comparisons. I think what he did last year, showing up to game 7 with multiple outfit options to wear post game based on whether or not they won. We don't need to talk about that in any sort of positive light, but what he did tonight, you do. You just do. You just have to laugh. I mean, the Pacers have done this before. They have done Tyrese Halliburton did tonight with running out and getting that deep 2 to go. And the Knicks are so lucky that he messed up and didn't take a full step back or a full enough step back to get a 3 there and just end the game. But that shot, that moment feels like Reggie Miller. That feels like the nightmare that New York was just not ready for. And we watched them be unready for it on the basketball court. They were caught off guard. It felt during the end of that game like it was more than the Pacers playing really well. It felt like the Knicks couldn't dig deeper. Like they were trying and couldn't. And listen, it's easy to point at the lineups, the rotations, and say, hey, that starting lineup is still not good. They're still not producing. They're still not good. But Mitchell Robinson went in the game and things didn't get much better. I mean, Obi Toppin punked Mitchell Robinson at the rim. Obi Toppin punked Mitchell Robinson at the rim. It's a brutal loss for the Knicks. It really is. But that said, you can't just declare the series over. At some point, you've got to look forward. And at some point, you've got to be able to not toss the tape completely, but get ready to have some more tape to look at. We'll keep getting through your comments here in a second. If you want, you can leave comments on Twitter or on YouTube, I believe. So yeah, wherever you're watching, retweet, thumbs up, subscribe, follow, you name it. Appreciate y'all for being here. 685 strong in the chat right now. Yeah, the Knicks blew this one. They just blew it. And it was a historic loss, rendering teams in the last 27 years that led by 17 or more. I mean, they were 970-0, and now they're not. That is crazy. That is crazy. That is a historic collapse, no matter how you want to slice or dice it. And it's just, you just kind of have to sit with that for a little bit. All day tomorrow, all day Thursday. What else are you going to do? Got to sit with it because it's the only game of the series. It's the only thing you have to base things off of. And it's the Pacers again. They took the Knicks out last year. and that wound is still fresh. Um, let's get back to your comments here. So keep the conversation going with you all. Always love involving everyone. Emily says, "What the hell happened?" Yeah, that's fair. What's going on, by the way? But yeah, I have a friend, Sean, who saw Halliburton make the shot at the buzzer and went outside. He did not know that it was ruled a 2 and not a 3. He thought the game was over and he went outside and he missed over. He did not know there was an overtime. He did not know there was an overtime and he completely missed it. Now, listen, he didn't miss much, right? I mean, they still lost the game, but yeah, not great. Lou says trade OG. I mean, listen, OG had a really brutal defensive performance to end this game. Um, I understand you saying this. Let's breathe. We're above this discourse around these parts, or at least we like to think we are. Let's breathe. We'll go back to Lou here. Missed free throws and smoked layups. Please trade OG. All right. I feel like Michael Jackson, like putting the gun down. All right. All right. OG Anunoby last year against the Indiana Pacers pretty much matched his career high point total in a playoff game by halftime of a game against them. I do not think you have seen his best in this series. I think you may potentially, or honestly, for the Knicks, hopefully you've seen everyone's worst, right? But OG Anunoby, you have seen, I believe, his worst. That's a brutal ending to the game from him and Josh Hart, like I said earlier. Lou says Neesmith hit 2 threes in a row. Why did the Knicks not make an adjustment, change the defensive matchup? I wouldn't have changed the defensive matchup. I would have left it the damn same, but I would have actually had the defensive matchup defending their matchup. Like, that's not what was going. You can't say in good faith that they were covering him. They weren't. Can I raise this chair? Good God. You can't say in good faith that they were covering him because they were. He was just stepping into them. I'm not saying this is what was going on. This is what it felt like. This is what it looked like. This is what it seemed like in the moment. It was almost like he was just trying to draw fouls, and he just ran and threw him in. Now we know Aaron Neesmith is like the number one guy who can go super hot. He shot like 52% from 3 in a shortened college season because he was a lunatic. But that said, you don't have to change the defensive matchup to get your defenders to guard a player on offense. Like, that's not what needed to change for the Knicks. I just don't think that's what needed to change for the Knicks. But I understand what you're saying. I just don't. Yeah. Yeah. 7 says this only happened because our mutual friend was there. If this is Johnny, I'm absolutely dead. Johnny, if this is you, then for the audience who doesn't know, you are referring to my college roommate, Eric. If you've been to Knick Film School events in New York City, you may have met him. He is a lunatic in his own right, and it seems like the Knicks may have lost the game because he was there. It's a fair hypothesis. It's an unproven hypothesis, but it also hasn't been disproven. Drift on Twitter, what's going on? Tibbs subbing in Brunson up 16 cost the Knicks the game. Traffic cone with 5 fouls. What did he expect? 2 turnovers and a couple bad decisions from the Knicks captain Clutch. Yeah, Drift. I mean, listen, that's fair, right? That's fair. I think it's unfair to expect that to happen again. Like, Jalen Brunson just won Clutch Player of the Year and then made a game-winning shot against the Detroit Pistons and closed them out, and then beat the defending champions, and now he's in the conference finals. Like, I get it. Drift, I get it. But I think it's harsh to say that that was a bad idea. Maybe you're not saying that. Maybe you're just retrospectively looking at the decision to sub Brunson back in despite the Knicks having gone on a huge run with him on the bench. But Drift, I'm going to ask you this. when the Knicks went on that huge run with Brunson on the bench, did you think for a second that they were actually a better team without him on the court? Because when you're up by that much and you're not in desperate need of defensive stops, you put a top 10 player in the NBA back in the game. So I'm going to defend that decision from Tom Thibodeau and say that I would have made it myself every day. I wouldn't have done it twice on a Sunday. I don't know who came up with that expression. It's stupid. But every day, 7 times a week, yeah. Yeah, I would have subbed Brunson back in up 16. If you're on Twitter or if you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment. Almost 800 of y'all in here right now. That's ridiculous. Appreciate you for being here. Welcome into All Things NBA from A to Z live, presented as always by Ball is Life. I'm Kris Pursiainen, excited to be here talking basketball with you guys tonight. If you're on Twitter or if you're on YouTube, you can get in the comment section. You can leave a comment or ask a question, and I will answer it and talk about it. Well, there's something I did want to bring up at one point, which I guess I'll take now as an opportunity to do. Was Josh Hart walking around with banana peels strapped to the bottom of his shoes? Like, I think I saw him slip 4 or 5 times just in the second half in regulation. And the defensive play on which he's running out to just shook my entire desk, where he's running out to close out, and you see literally like he drove over a banana peel in Mario Kart. Like his legs pull out from underneath him and he goes flying pretty much into probably Timmy Chalamet courtside. I mean, at what point do you think, hey, I got to remove the shoe, I got to wipe it, right? Maybe change the shoe? What was going on the court tonight that he kept slipping? Because, and I know it's random and it's odd and it's a quirky whatever thing to bring up, it objectively resulted in a blown key stop. They needed a key defensive stop that they didn't get because Josh Hart was like, I can't even make the noise. It's like that Looney Tunes noise where it's like, it's like someone just slips and goes flying. Like, what the hell? Why was Wile E. Coyote closing out on 3-point shooters tonight? So yeah, I don't know. Let's get back to the comments. I'll take them as they come. Drift says, I think Deuce McBride should have stayed out there in Hart's place retrospectively. His defensive motor was much better today. Hart didn't win Clutch Player of the Year. You got me there. That's fine. I'm fine with this take. I think Josh Hart, and I said this to open this stream, I think OG Anunoby and Josh Hart defensively were not good. I think they were detrimental to the Knicks team defense, even if they got an individual stop here or there. I think they were harmful presences defensively for the Knicks in the final 5-7 minutes of the game. I mean, you cannot give up that many open threes to the same player over and over again. But aside from that, in overtime, after Nesmith Mania, like the Hart wasn't there when he needed to be on switches, on rotations. It didn't work. The Knicks 5-man lineup that they keep running out there, that they think is their best lineup, that they contend is their best lineup, it keeps not working. And that's a problem for the New York Knicks because that lineup plays a lot. I talked about this in an article for Clutch Points today, so I'll reference the statistics I used in there. Please keep in mind that these statistics are now inaccurate because tonight's game added more data. But coming into tonight's game, through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, the Indiana Pacers averaged 21.3 assists per 100 possessions as a team. The Knicks ranked 12th in assist ratio, averaging 15.1 assists per 100 possessions. When you look at the totals tonight, the Pacers had 26 and the Knicks had 24. Both teams on the and it looked like it too, but both teams were moving the ball around about to the same extent. Sure, maybe the Pacers moved it a little bit more and got some more open shots that they didn't knock down in the first half, especially, in that portion of the game. But geez, it's not like they moved the ball so much more than the Knicks that it was only natural for the Knicks to lose the game. you look at the turnovers, that's where you get into some trouble. All right. Not good. Indiana had 7 turnovers tonight in 53 minutes of NBA playoff basketball. They had 26 assists and 7 turnovers. New York had 46 rebounds to Indiana's 39. You know what made that not matter? Do you know what made the Knicks having 2 more offensive rebounds and 5 more defensive rebounds than the Pacers not matter? The fact that despite only having 2 fewer assists in the game than the Indiana Pacers, 26, 24, the Knicks turned the ball over more than twice as much as Rick Carlisle's team. 7 turnovers for Indiana, 15 turnovers for the New York Knicks. And I don't want to get into like just shouting out individual player names, but the guy is literally designated as the captain of the team. So I do think it's fair to point out that Jalen Brunson had 7 turnovers tonight. That's just a fact. He had 5 assists and 7 turnovers. I understand he had 43 points. So like the whole 5 assists thing doesn't really matter. He's made 60% of his damn shots. So the 5 assists thing doesn't really matter because when you shoot 15 from 25, it doesn't matter that you're 1 of 6 from 3 or that you had 5 assists because you had 40 points on 60% shooting. But this is what is a problem for the New York Knicks. 7 turnovers isn't great. 7 turnovers is a problem. And you can't sustain that. That's not enough. You're not playing well enough to sustain that. Like, that's how you blow a lead. You let Aaron Nesmith walk the ball into the 28-foot range and just keep pulling up uncontested. He's going to make them. Aaron Nesmith shot 70% in this game. 9 of 13 from the floor, 8 of 9 from behind the arc. And it's not like, oh, he kept making his shots, so why don't they guard him? It's like, no matter who it is, when an Indiana Pacer is trying to help propel a comeback, don't leave them wide open because it's the NBA playoffs. Like, I might go insane if I need to explain this another game this series. Derek White just kept getting left open. The Knicks didn't go into the game thinking they'd like to leave Derek White open, but it kept happening. And you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore that it has been a problem consistently for this Knicks team to defend the 3-point line. Don't do it. They don't do it. And so when they're unable to rotate properly because they're not communicating on the court, Fred Katz said recently, this isn't the closest locker room he's covered in his life. I've alluded over the months to the Knicks locker room not being super tight-knit, despite everyone thinking that, like, they just, like, have tea parties back there and they're all best friends or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But they need to be able to do their jobs. Like, they need to be able to do their jobs, which is rotating defensively, which is talking to each other on the defensive end of the court. You go back to the turnover counts, right? And I see Lou in the comments says Hart needs new Kobe's. Brunson should lend him a pair. Listen, those two have enough pairs of Kobe's for the next 40 years if they want to play for that long. So something had to change on Hart's feet. Season average for the Knicks is 13 turnovers. Yeah, but when the Pacers only have 7 and the Knicks only score 4 points off those 7 turnovers, it makes the Pacers scoring 27 points off of the Knicks' 15 turnovers really brutal. Real brutal, folks. That's the story there. Like, Nesmith being left open time and time again. The Knicks not converting off the Pacers turnovers. The Pacers only converting, never not converting off the Knicks turnovers. That could be the game right there. I don't care to sit and slice up the blame pie as much as I do to just talk about everything going on. Um, I think now's as good a time as any to get through the rest of the comments and then react to some post game quotes from the athletes themselves, from the players. So let's get to the rest of your comments. Okay. So much for that light. One man show here, and I'm a shit show. Brunson live on ESPN. Is he? That's odd. I don't think so. Social media is going to ruin me for the next 2 days. Yeah, fair. Fair, man. Stay off it. Get a book. Get outside. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do, man, because that's pretty brutal. That's pretty brutal. Tom Thibodeau, justified in his madness of leaving starters in until the bitter end. You can just never let your guard down against them. No lead is safe. So that's something. He's right. They let their guard down, literally, because they didn't guard them. I think the reason it's frustrating that Aaron Nesmith was the one who just made 3-point shot after 3-point shot after 3-point shot wasn't that I was expecting him to miss any of them at some point. It was more so that the Knicks needed to understand from what was happening on the basketball court that they were also standing on, that they needed to close out better on 3-point shooters. They didn't do it, and they didn't guard up on screens. That might be just as infuriating as not guarding Nesmith, was not guarding up on screens, because they did it to themselves. They basically asked for it. They basically did what it took defensively to say, Indiana, if you can read a simple defensive miscue, y'all go ahead and score a couple more points. Take a couple more. That's not, there's no analysis for that. Like that, there just has to be better attention to detail. Tom Thibodeau, there's obviously disappointment when you fall short. We have to take a look at the film, make our corrections, and then we've got to change quickly for game 2. Now, listen, to be fair, a tweet of mine got some traction at the end of the regular season when Tom Thibodeau said, following the loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the regular season, that the Knicks really needed to make some changes and do better with the NBA playoffs so close. Listen, they did better, but here we are again. So, this Knicks film session for the team should not be a peaceful one. It should be a productive one where they're unafraid to call each other out. It is not fruitless to look back at all of their defensive errors and identify the areas that the effort just simply was unacceptable. You don't do it to embarrass the guys in front of their teammates. You do it so that there's some sort of understanding and it's clearly communicated that that kind of play just can't be something that happens again. You can't. You have to nip that now, because if they try and approach this series like this team is the Detroit Pistons, they can't get too high on their own supply. They should be very excited that they beat Boston. But Brunson was very clear with his messaging at the end of that series, saying, hey, listen, I was telling the guys, get off the court, don't celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate. We haven't done anything yet. They're saying all the right things. But the play tonight, especially on the defensive end of the court from the New York Knicks in the final 7 minutes of the game, the final 2 of the regulation period, and the entire 5 of overtime, that defensive play tonight was not the way that a team that wants to win at all costs plays. That was not the way that a resilient team plays. The Knicks have a lot of tick left. There's at least 3 games left in this series. Bare minimum, guys. They have a lot of tick left to show that they can bounce back, that they are better than this, that they're a resilient group, that they can play better than they did tonight. But the way we started this stream was by saying that the Knicks need to start by identifying this as an all-time historic collapse in the NBA playoffs that just is not something that they can afford to let be representative of their level of talent, their level of execution, and their overall level of play. They can't, because if this is who the Knicks are, they're going to blow this series. And you can't lay back on, but they made the conference final. There's a difference between losing and losing like this. if the Knicks contested those Aaron Nesmith threes to the best of their ability and they just kept going in, or the referees were making brutally inaccurate calls, sending Nesmith to the line, and the Knicks lost by a couple points because of what felt like truly unfair breaks for them, okay, that's not representative of you as a group. The way you respond is representative of you as a group. But this is not the first time that this Knicks team this season has not had their heels dug into the ground, their teeth sunk into the arms of the opposing team, their nails clawing into the backs of their defenders. There needs to be a true desperation. That's the team that was up 3-1 against the Boston Celtics with a chance to close it out at home. Or sorry, on the road? Well, where was game 5? Home? No, yeah, that was at home. No, that was on the road. They had a chance to close it out on the road, like I was saying, but you heard me wrong. And they didn't. Jaylen Brown taught them what physical play looks like. And here they are, not down by 20, not making some heroic comeback, up by 20 points, up by 17 late in the game. And they allow 30 points in the final 7 minutes of the clock. If you're just tuning in on Twitter or on YouTube, you can leave a comment. I will get to it. Question, comment, suggestion, thought, take, what you're doing tonight to distract yourself from this loss after this. Me personally, I will be trying to get a couple hours of sleep. I have to get to the Infinity Sports Network at 4 a.m. So I will be working from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. Today, Thursday, May 22nd. So, yeah, is me doing this live stream right now a little bit of me completely denying that that's the situation that I'm going to find myself in 3 hours? Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Let's get to your comments. Stannis says, I usually like fouling up 3 so the opponent can't get up a 3, but not with 12 seconds left. This is a great comment because it brings up a conundrum of paradoxical proportions that the Knicks put themselves squarely in tonight when they refused to guard up on screens late in the fourth quarter, and they refused to guard up on shooters following those screens late in the fourth quarter. That resulted in it not being unfair to say that the Pacers were probably going to come up the court and make another 3. When you have watched Aaron Nesmith be that way, that far into being on his way to going 8 of 9 from downtown, there is a fear within you that is insurmountable and maybe unexplainable. That guy, number 23, is going to come up the court and send you home. I understand the Knicks fouling, particularly when you think about OG Anunoby not fouling and the Boston Celtics winning that 4th game against the New York Knicks in the regular season to make them 4-0 for the season series. If you remember, Jason Tatum pushed the ball up the court. OG Anunoby did not foul, and the Celtics were able to score. OG Anunoby, I mean, that's someone who struggled tonight, man. Struggled on the defensive end to close that game. OG and Hart, I said earlier, when I rewatched this game, those are the 2 guys I'm going to dial in on. I might skip the first half. I might just need to watch this second half in overtime like 3 times before sharing any more thoughts on it. I'm glad you guys are here now. All good. Christ, 944 people. Oh man. I'm not nervous. I'm glad you guys are here now to talk about this immediately after the game because there's going to be so much to talk about just about this one game. Uh, and yeah, I want to get to Lou's comment here because it addresses the final point I wanted to bring up tonight with regard to sitting with this loss if you're a fan of the New York Knicks to something that was a huge sigh of relief if you're a fan of the Indiana Pacers. But we'll get to his first comment. Pistons, Celtics, and Pacers have all gotten plenty of open threes against the Knicks. Need to close that gap and stop helping when dudes get downhill, no collapsing. Yeah, that's really where I'm getting at heart tonight is the extra help on drives. It wasn't rational. It wasn't working. And if he was getting away with it, they didn't get the stop because of the extra help. Josh Hart is integral to the New York Knicks' success. I explained many times coming into this season why I thought he was such a key piece, not just to the team this season, but to their starting five, which I knew would be playing a lot of minutes. But with that said, when he's gambling on the defensive end of the court to the extent that he has been, and that could be a coaching directive, he could be following orders from Tom Thibodeau and not really believing in it, but needing to do it because that's what the coach is saying. I can't sit here and try and discern what's going on there. It seems to me like Tom Thibodeau does not have a problem with Hart doing this because it doesn't go, it continues to happen and it doesn't go punished with regard to minutes or playing time. So you have to think it's on purpose, right? But it feels a little bit like Karl Anthony Towns creeping in inside the 3-point line behind Jalen Brunson on his drives. Because when you're the best shooting big man in the league, instead of being wide open for three at the top of the key, you should crash the glass so that just in case the clutch player of the year misses a layup, you can get the board. This is why I think the Knicks' best personnel groupings involve one or both of McBride and Robinson. If you didn't see it, I wrote an article today about that for Clutch Points. I will try and do this quickly so that you guys aren't like in brutal pain over it. But I'm going to link the article that I wrote coming into the Pacers series just below this live stream on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go to my Twitter. I write for clutchpoints.com. It'll be on there as well in the Knicks section and you name it. But I'm going to link it on Twitter just because it's so easy to. I want you guys to check this article out, if only to see the numbers coming into this series regarding the Knicks starting lineup, their efficiency on the court, how much they play, and my look into whether or not they should be playing so much. There's a lot of numbers to get into. I lay it out really clean and simple in the article. If it's too convoluted for you analytically, shoot me a DM. Let me know because I don't want to write stuff that's like nerdy gobbledygook for most people out there. I have no life, but that doesn't mean you all don't have lives, and I want my analysis to be digestible. So I just linked the article on Twitter, something I talked about, and I'll reference a quick statistic from it now. The Knicks starting lineup coming into tonight's game has played the second most possessions of any lineup out of the 16 teams so far, or in total, that have played in these NBA playoffs. The Nuggets starting five played 562 possessions together. Remember, they had some series go pretty long against the Clippers and the Thunder. The Knicks starters played 522 possessions together coming into tonight, and their series only went 6 games each time. No other lineups coming into tonight by any playoff team. That includes Miami, that includes the Lakers, that includes the Celtics, the Cavaliers, everyone, right? Nuggets, 562 possessions. Knicks starting lineup, 522. No team, no other lineup had played 350 or more minutes. The third place lineup, the Indiana Pacers starting lineup, which had played 342 possessions together. So the team's two teams' most common lineups play a lot of possessions. The Knicks about 200 more coming into game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The results are quite different. The Knicks' efficiency differential, the points they've allowed per possession, subtracted from the ones they've scored per possession, a negative 2.3. 21st percentile in all NBA playoff teams and their lineups. Not great. The Pacers starters coming into tonight, efficiency differential of plus 21.4. So if you look at the points that these teams are allowing per possession and subtracting that from the points they're scoring per possession, the Pacers are doing better by about 23 points a game. It's not good. Here's the thing, though. The Knicks are in the final four teams standing, just like the Pacers are. How did they get there with such a negative whatever? It's the lineups with McBride and Robinson. It's the lineups with when Brunson, Hart, and Anunoby play with both McBride and Robinson. The Knicks have a 51.4 offensive rebound percentage and have a positive 33.7 net rating. But that lineup had only played 35 playoff minutes coming into tonight compared to the 266 minutes the Knicks starting lineup had played coming into tonight. The other one for the Knicks, Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, and Robinson. Just so much better statistically. They have a plus 2.3 net rating. Again, not amazing, but not negative, right? The Knicks played at the Pacers' pace, no pun intended, to end the game, and that is part of what lost them the game. But when it comes down to it, the Knicks collapsed at the end of this basketball game because of their inattentiveness to defensive details, their lack of ability to close out on shooters and guard up on screens, and the general shock with which they responded to the Pacers' desperate level of play and hunger. They were caught off guard tonight by the Pacers' desperation. They did not expect them to have that level of fight and shot making in them with that little time left in the game. Well, here you are, sitting after a game one loss, 138 to 135 in overtime, wondering, how are they going to fix this? Well, if you missed any part of this stream, you can rewind, start from the beginning. It'll be on YouTube and Twitter. I am getting ready to wind things down here. I will put out one last call for questions or comments. There are over 1,000 people watching right now, which is ridiculous. If you want to leave a comment on Twitter or YouTube, go ahead. I'm here. I'm going to answer every single one before we get out of here. But to close out my points for tonight, the Knicks going into the rest of this series need to defend with hunger. They need to defend like their opponent is going to make every open shot they get. That is not an adjustment that they made over the course of the Boston series with regard to one Derek White. I know they still won, but look at Indiana. This team just did to the Knicks what the Knicks did twice to the Celtics, shocking them. But the fact of the matter is they did it to a bit more of a historic extent. I want to find that stat one more time because it genuinely shocked me to see how bad this collapse was. NBA teams were 0-970 in the playoffs over the last 27 years when trailing by 14 plus points with under 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in regulation. Tonight made it 1-970. The other way to say that is that the Knicks tonight were the only team in the last 27 years of NBA basketball. I am 23 years old as of like 3 weeks ago. Add 4 years to my lifetime. And in that time, the Knicks are the only team out of 971 to lead by 14 plus points with under 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in regulation and lose the game. A brutal, historic collapse for the New York Knicks tonight in game one. I am not writing them off. I am not writing them out of this series. I really do think that they can come out, win game two at home, and go on the road with a tied up series where they have excelled all season on the road. That's been the situation for the Knicks consistently this year. So that's not over. The series isn't over. But something tells me that the 1,030 people the 1,130 people in this stream right now who have to go to work tomorrow, who have to go to school tomorrow, who have to get up and look for jobs or apply to schools or do something tomorrow, something tells me every single one of you is going to be thinking about this game all day long. And I don't blame you. But it does come down to this. We're going to go to the Lou's comment here that I've wanted to get to. The Knicks had 2 great looks from 3 at the end of the game, both pretty deep. So not great, but like open enough great. And they just, Brunson airballed it. Like Halliburton had like 3 air balls in this game. That was a pretty bad one from Brunson. And Cat clanked the second. Either one of those shots goes in. It's a tie game. You're potentially looking at double overtime. You're potentially looking at the Knicks losing in double overtime and both teams being that much more exhausted. Like, we can't relitigate the end of that game. I will go back and rewatch it plenty of times, but we can't relitigate it this second. What we can do is just talk about the fact that the Knicks were up by as many points as they were and put themselves in a situation where the game came down to their 2 best players missing decent looks from beyond the arc that would have tied it up. They had already lost by that point, because you can't tell me that if they had forced a second overtime that they would have won it. Aaron Nesmith went 8 of 9 from 3. The players do not have to tip their caps. They need to defend with fervor, with desperation. They need to defend like they need to defend. But me, sitting here in a rolly chair, I can tip my cap. Aaron Nesmith, that's one hell of a performance to close that game out. Good for you, man. That's insane. That's insane. And Tyrese Halliburton, his shot at the end of regulation. What else can you say? You know, that guy is everything that Trae Young acts to this day, 5 years later, like he is. This is a Knick enemy. This is an enemy of the city of New York. And this is someone who's playing well enough in more than just one first-round playoff series to back that up. We got one final question from Lou. Again, last call for questions. I think this might be the last one. If you don't want it to be, get yours in quick. Lou says, who was guarding Nesmith? Hart, OG, McHale? Who was lazy on D for those 4 threes? Well, I want to say at least 2 of them were in transition, which means like someone just had to pick them up, like, or had to pick him up. But I can tell you right now, by the end of the game, OG was the one who missed one of the closeouts. I think there were like 34 seconds left by that point, though. So maybe I'm a little late here. I know Brunson was late to one closeout. I know OG was late to Brunson was late to one on the right wing. OG was late to one at the top of the key. So it wasn't the same defender all 4 times. I think it was OG twice who didn't step up. So at least 2 of the threes were Anunoby, and one of them was Brunson. Yeah, at least 2 Anunoby, at least 1 Brunson. And I'm trying to remember when Halliburton brought it up the court and got it to Nesmith, and he shook Hart out of his boots. That's what he did. So 2 on Anunoby, 1 on Brunson, 1 on Hart. There's your answer on those 4 threes. And the 1 on Hart was the one where, again, he literally had banana peels duct taped to the bottom of his shoes. This guy was slipping and sliding like it's the middle of summer at summer camp on the court at MSG. What's up with that, man? You blew a tire? Like, we gotta dial in on the herringbone outsoles on the shoes or something, man. Get something different on. Oy. Salvaje 20 just says, just laughs. Yeah, that's fair. Ratan says, will Tibbs ever change the starting lineup to close out games, or the closing lineup? The plus minus is never good, Chris, and fans keep asking for it. Yeah, Listen, I think I don't know that he will. I think maybe if the Knicks go down 2-0, you'll see him try Robinson in the starting lineup, or maybe even someone like McBride. But I think McBride is leaning more into how the Pacers play. I think if the Knicks want to dictate the pace and the tone of the game, they could go with Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Towns, and Robinson. I think they'll do this if they go down in the series. I think just based on just knowing the Knicks and having covered them for the 5.5 years that I have now, and having covered this Leon Rose regime for about 4 years now. Ooh, March 2025, 5 years. Yeah. Having covered the Rose regime for all 5 years so far, they're very analytically invested and aware. Just that recently they posted a picture of Josh shooting in the gym, and in the background they had Noah basketball up. We have a pod here on All Things NBA on our page with the CEO of Noah Basketball shot tracking data. So like he talked about how Tom Thibodeau is like one of the most invested coaches into the shooting data out of any of them in the NBA. Like they're analytically very invested and friendly. The Knicks, they have to see the numbers, they have to see the ratings. I think it comes down to the following. Going into the Knicks series against the Boston Celtics, I looked back at every single playoff series that Tom Thibodeau has coached in his life as a head coach. Yes, that took like 40 minutes. But going back to Chicago and going back to Minnesota and looking at his time in New York, he has never once in his coaching career changed his starting lineup when he was not losing a series. I don't even think he made a change when he was tied. I think he had to have been losing a series to make a change to the starting lineup. In New York, you can think of Rose in for Peyton in the 2021 season. You can think of the Miami Heat series where the starters changed. Why? Because Quentin Grimes wasn't available and then he was. So that wasn't as much a coaching decision. Like Tom Thibodeau in Chicago, Minnesota, and New York has never made a change to his starting lineup in the middle of a playoff series at all if he was not losing that series. So I'm not expecting him to change the starting lineup, but he has changed the closing lineup. That is something that has changed. If you remember the first game the Knicks played in the 2025 postseason, Mikal Bridges rode Pine down the stretch in favor of Cam Payne. That happened in real life. The Knicks took game one because of a ridiculous 21-0 run that happened with Mikal Bridges on the bench. So I do think Tom Thibodeau is willing to change the closing lineup. I don't know that he'll do it before he's down 0-2 in the series. But I think we may see a greater reliance in the next game on lineups involving McBride or Robinson, because simply put, Hart played too many minutes to be effective on defense the way they needed him to be tonight. I don't know what else to chalk up the defensive, like just losing his man. So it's tough. It's tough. With all that said, I've got to go to work in about 3 hours. Going to be working on some sports minutes for Mr. Esiason and crew. So I think that is going to be it for me for tonight. There are 1,200 people in here right now, which at 23 years old, I'm not fully capable of processing. So I'm just going to pretend that it's not happening. Thank you to everyone in here. You guys are absolutely insane and amazing for tuning in. I thank you guys so much for your comments, for interacting with the show. If you watched, if you missed the start, you can rewind If you watched this whole hour, you're an insane person, and I love you. If you tuned in 5 minutes ago, you're an insane person, and I love you. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I've been Kris Pursiainen here with all things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life. I am going to shamelessly plug just one last time my article that came out today for Clutch Points. I am also a national NBA reporter, and I wrote an article about the Knicks' best personnel groupings and how they can help them beat the Indiana Pacers. You saw the starting lineup struggle a great deal tonight, and you can look at the real, numbers behind it. They're not pretty. The Knicks starting lineup played 25 minutes and 50 seconds, was a minus 16, had a 119.6 offensive rating, and a 167.4 defensive rating in 26 minutes. The defensive rating was 167.4 for the starting lineup. It hasn't been working in the NBA playoffs so far. It did not magically start working tonight. So with that said, if you're watching on Twitter, underneath this tweet that you're watching this stream through is a link to that article. I suggest you check it out to understand my perspective on why I'm so confident that the Knicks' best personnel groupings involve one or both of Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson. If you're watching on YouTube, you can run over to clutchpoints.com, go NBA, Knicks, find the piece. It's called Knicks Perfect Lineups to Defeat the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Lou, last comment, he says, thank you for doing this, by the way. Respect, since you got work in 2 hours. Hey, man, this is what the people wanted. So it's what the people got. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You're all the best. You're all madmen and women. You're lunatics, and don't change. Stay at it. I appreciate you so much. Stay tuned in here. Follow me at Kris Pursiainen on Twitter if you don't already, to know when I'm live streaming again. And thank you so much for tuning in. Ratan, I work mostly on the national network side. I'll be in on the JR Sport Brief show a couple times this week on the Infinity Sports Network. So feel free to tune in. Appreciate y'all. Thanks so much. Clutchpoints.com or twitter.com to see my latest article on why the Knicks' best lineups involve Deuce, Mitch, or both. And I'll see you guys soon. We'll talk. Have a great one. Peace.